My mom told me not to talk to strangers on the internet, but I'm glad I didn't listen. We are the Certified Noonas, your sisters in the love of Asian entertainment.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
I'm Jessie.
I'm Natalia.
And I'm Sky.
And guess what? It's Women's Month! Woo! And we're women! Woo! That's really exciting. So,
in case the Noonas didn't give it away.
No, so because it's International Women's Month, we thought that we would have, a nice little fun episode talking about women in the shows that we love and the music that we love and the movies that we love. And, talk about things about women in media and women in acting and singing and dancing and everything. And today we want to talk also about, depictions of women in media and, just things that come up, that we think about and that we talk about outside of this podcast. And we thought, hey, let's talk about them in this podcast. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to give some, recommendations for, things that have, interesting female characters and really good, performances and stuff. So we think that you might enjoy, if you like the same stuff we like. So the first thing we want to talk about is sort of women in the media. Basically a lot of things come up, it's not always great out there to be a female in the public eye. And by not always, I mean it's very rarely great to be a female in the public eye.
Yes, sadly.
The amount of times that I have seen, a 36-year-old woman playing the mother to a teenager.
That she didn't, not in a Gilmore Girls kind of,
scenario. And she was not a teen mom. Or when you see, a 40-year-old playing, a grandma, and, I'm always come on. And not a new grandma whose, daughter is, 20. No. To, a grandma to, a teenager, and you're so she burst in the room? I
always think of, The Last Empress, and the woman who played, the mom, the queen mother or whatever, and the king, who was her son in the show, but they were the closest same age friends that they had on the, they were 2 years apart or something, and you're why is she playing the mother to a 40-year-old? She's 42. What is wrong? No.
That reminds me of Playful Kiss. Even though the mom is supposed to be young, especially with the Korean version, I haven't looked at any of the other versions, actual actors and their ages. Mm-hmm. The woman who played the mom to Kim Hyun-jung's character, they're only I think it was 6 or 7 years apart. It was to the point literally can't even physically create a human being between the two. And it wasn't she was, it was a weird thing. You're no, she's not that old, even though she is represented as younger, but still you still have a kid who's her son, who's not, is very close to her age, and it's just weird.
That must be such a struggle. We already go through this in Western society, people are always they age better than we do and all this stuff. But if you were actually a Korean woman watching that and being I'm supposed to look like that at 65, I'm 40 and I don't look. Well, I don't look like that. I don't look like a 40-year-old actress. I'm 45 and I don't look like 45-year-old actresses.
But promoted. That's the also the reason.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you can't fault the actresses either, because they need to make a living.
So it's not their fault that the roles that are available for them are limited, and then sometimes you're gonna have to put yourself out, because honestly sometimes it's the only way you're gonna be able to act and get a job in a field that you like. So you kind of really have to take what you can.
They did in that Last Empress, I do remember that they clearly knew what they were doing too, because they kept making a lot of commentary how this queen mother was keeping herself young, and she was I don't know, bathing in the blood of virgins or something to keep
this. Really.
I think she literally took a bath in breast milk at one point because it was supposed to be, and I was looking at this tub going, There's
That's a
no
lot
way. That's an
that's a lot of
awful lot of
bread.
mums that she's got
That's-
getting
it's
her
a
back
lot.
because holy moly.
And then I look at like Uncanny Counter, for example, like the older like the man and the woman in that. Sorry, my brain is just gone. But the woman who plays like the lady counter, she's younger than the dude who played the cop.
Yeah.
But like they literally had to old her up to.
I know, and it's a really weird kind of olding because they didn't need to. I do see where like you'll just like automatically think she's old because one of the side effects of her powers is to gray out her hair. So that's like just a thing that like would happen. But they pair her with the older guy as like the romantic interest. And though it works for the younger kid to like kind of see her as a like a mother type figure for him, like
because that age range makes sense.
it like the others kind of it makes it seem like she's the mother type as opposed to like more of like she would be the big sister type,
Like
if
the
anything,
aunt,
to
maybe,
yeah, the aunt. And it just it gets really weird, and it's like so not, it doesn't matter because the kid is so young. He's like a high school kid that literally she could have been a 30-year-old, you know, like, and it
would've
still
been the
would
same.
like be like a feasible, like looking up to her like a mother type figure. It wouldn't matter. So it was just unnecessary and weird. Like, you're like, why?
Well, then you also get, I mean, but this isn't dependent on gender, but high school roles going to
25-year-olds,
30-year-olds,
30-year-olds.
In like in non K-drama stuff, I for some reason have found myself watching the Netflix Winx show because I hate quality, and it's the same thing. Like they're all like 28, right? And you're just
so
like
weird.
You're just like watching it like. Look at these. Look at
it's
these
always been a thing, and you're like,
it up.
Also, it's another one of the things. It's like you understand why the reasoning of like putting in an over 18 person is. It's because you don't have to deal with like all the rules of a minor on set. Then that's like fine. That's cool. I can do the suspension of disbelief for like an 18, 19-year-old. But when you're like literally presenting these like people, and you're like, they're 30, but then it also creates this really weird thing where it's like it allows the like really sexual things to happen.
Yeah.
In your head, you're like, that's a 30-year-old, so this isn't weird, and you don't. You're not remembering that it's like a character who's supposed to be 15, and you're like,
When I watched the Taiwanese drama Attention Love, it starts in high school, but the actors are all 30. And so I kept waiting for the time jump because I assumed that, okay, we're going to spend a couple episodes. Like, why would you hire 30-year-olds who are obviously 30 for a high school drama? But no, like, they made it into, like, their first year in college, but that was it. Like, there was no major time jump. They were never adults ever at any point.
They were in high school for a lot of that show.
Yeah, like, it's like 20 episodes, and I don't think they're in college until, like, episode 16 or 17. Like... And I kept waiting. I was like, I figured high school was going to be like 4 episodes because why would you hire 30-year-olds? Like, it was just so bizarre. And it wasn't because they were going to like have big kissing scenes or sex scenes or anything. Like, it was just because. And I'm like, okay, but I can tell you look 30.
And I find that like that this sort of leads to these like really unrealistic like standards of appearance for, you know, like teenagers, and also for people who are in their 30s. Like, it's like, what, are we supposed to look 16 still, or like be ancient hags? Apparently yes.
But...
We're over the age of 20, therefore we should just roll over and die.
You should just grab a shovel, find a cemetery plot, and dig your own grave because you about to die. You're so old. I think there was like a it wasn't an SNL skit, but it had like Julia Dreyfus in it, where it was like, I'm turning 40, which means I must now walk into the river and fade out of existence. The only roles left for me are grandmother, like kindly unmarried aunt, sexless individual. Get your aprons, ladies. We'll never be looked at as attractive again. We are finally free. so ridiculous.
It is. All you can do is laugh, but like, yeah, it's really ridiculous. And
it's like all you can do is laugh, but at the same time, it's like laughing with a little like a clown laugh, you know,
like a little like
this is awful
choke in the back of your throat. You're like,
And then another thing is also, I'm not going to get way deep into this because it's not unnecessary, but romantic roles in dramas where they show very, very young, actually the actresses being very, very young, and then their partner role being very, very, very not young.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a choice that is made quite often.
Well, and like
it
when
depends on if like that's like the plot. Like if you look at something like Mr. Sunshine, for example, it's like that made sense as
right,
because those were the characters. But then when you look at, you know, and though I love this show, I just need to say I do love this show. I was wary of these choices. You look at something like Mirror of the Witch, where, you know, Yang Se-Yang was 30, and she was like just turning 18, but they were supposed to be the same age in the show, so it didn't. Why? Like,
oh, they did that with another one, the radio show. I never watched it.
Yeah,
the
radio show.
Radio romance.
Well, that one that we watched, was it last year? The something about like hearing your voice or something. I can't remember, but with Sejong was in it, and I mean, she was like 21, 22, something like that when she was in it, and the guys, both of the male leads in the triangle, were 35, 34, something like that, but they were all supposed to be essentially the same age or like a couple years apart, and you're like, but there are actors who are in their 20s and there are actresses who are in their 30s, so like, hey, why don't you just actually make that happen? Like, it's not that hard.
And I think like the problem with the like big age gaps is like inherently I don't really care about an age gap as long as everybody's consensual and it's like of the right age. It's fine, but like we can't like not see like or like look at the bigger picture that like even the consensual ones actually do kind of harm things, because they do perpetuate this thing that like it's okay for all older males to only target like female like younger hunt, and that like then perpetuates like, you know, if you're older you have no chance at like love, but also in the same respect it just like makes it so that it's okay that like these younger kids are getting the roles, and then the people who would be that age then are the grandparents old, like, and that's the biggest problem, that it's not like that it's the age gap. Although I do say if like you are only putting that one young actress with a lot of older actresses, that's a problem.
That's a little sketch.
And it does like get a little sketchy when it's actors and actresses, because they actually don't have like an option. They have to they don't have the option in that like age gap. They just signed on probably at different times, and they have to deal with it what they deal with it. It really does create lots of problems. It's just a ripple effect that just like infects everything, and it's so prevalent.
And it's like, we're not saying that
not in just like Asian stuff, but like
age
everywhere.
gaps are dangerous. Like, for example, my parents had 30-year age gap between them, and I had a totally, I say totally normal childhood, but everyone did think my dad was my grandfather. But in their defense, he looked like Santa Claus. So like, but I did get a lot of, a little bit of fun out of that, where like he would go to parent teacher and they'd be like, "What about your grandpa?" And I'd be like, "My grandfather's been dead for years." And then it would be very awkward, and then I'd be like, my dad, he's old. But like, that's not the norm. Like, usually it's like within 10 years, you know what I mean? So it's like pairing up these 40-year-old actors with these, just turned 20 actresses, and they're all supposed to be playing 30-year-olds. It's weird. Just cast 30-year-olds. Like,
well, and realistically, as far as media being a model for some younger impressionable people, that leads 18-year-olds or younger to think, oh, if I'm attracted to much, much older men, and they could take advantage just really easily of, I see it in the media so much or whatever. I mean, that's because we all know the real life issues behind all of those things. And I wasn't meaning to go super down that road. I just wanted to bring up the fact that
I get it.
The times when the role is like, hey, we're all supposedly late 20s, and then like it's obvious the actress is like 18.
Yeah,
when
like what about all those females that were in their late 20s that could do the role perfectly well? Like
it's like, why are you overlooking? Yeah, can you imagine the amount of 28-year-old actresses that would have fit that bill perfectly?
Like, oh, 28? Mm-hmm. I think you mean entering the retirement home.
28 is
ancient, unwanted by any men.
Aren't they like walking with like?
They have their walkers out. Yeah. They are sexless beings. They are no longer gendered. They're
gonna break a hip like immediately, so that you can't give them anything.
Good Lord. Which is why, like, you know, like I love shows like this isn't even an Asian show, but like, what's that show? Frankie and. It's on Netflix.
Grace or something?
Yeah, Grace and Frankie. Where it's where it has Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in it as these like older women, like they're in their 70s, but like they're still, you know, like they start a sex toy company and like they're human beings. Like they remind me of my mom's friends because like. My mom's friends are exactly like that. Like, they're still talking about, you know, like, oh, you see that good-looking cashier at, you know, Sobeys? And you're like, oh. Like, women don't just die. Like, they don't just become, you know, apple pie baking, you know, Santa Claus.
Hey, it's okay to bake apple pie, though.
Yeah, no, but you know,
Hey, like, listen,
you know, we like a good apple pie.
Cold dead hands.
Do like, I'm not saying we can't also bake the apple pies.
There we go.
But like, you know, that's not the whole facet of people's personalities. So
ageism and internalized ageism is a huge, huge issue. And I think that I would venture to say that for women, it is a bigger problem.
It's a much bigger problem.
And I think it's starting to be, I would say this loosely, but I feel like it's starting to become a bigger problem, especially with internalized ageism for younger kids who are growing up in social media. Some of the stuff that I would have never thought of when I was younger about someone's age, or like know even just to not say it to them, like be like it's a bad thought, but it's kept in my head.
Listen,
that
we all
is
have
not
bad
happening
thoughts.
You know.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think like, that's something that needs to be starting to be addressed, because it's actually like,
well, I mean, just bad. We see in the stan Twitter, especially K-pop stan Twitter, this mentality that they have that they are all going to have like some kind of like K-pop bonfire when they turn 21, because you can't like things anymore once you're over 20. And you're like, no, kids, you can still have personalities. You're still allowed to like things and have hobbies.
It's like the amount of time that I've seen like someone be like, oh, shouldn't you be like taking care of your kids and stuff? And it's just like, first off, don't have any. Second off, it's the middle of the day. Even if I did have some, they'd be at school. What do you think people do all day? Like, just sit around waiting for their children and husbands to come home from work, just like twiddling their thumbs with no interest? No! We have interests, okay?
And I know within artist circles, there's pressure to be successful even before hitting 20. I mean, because you see the success stories of the young kids all through social media and all these things.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think it's in every... And definitely more in fandom, you know, the heavy fandom spaces, definitely like K-pop and stuff. We're allowed to have hobbies. And I do think that having internalized, like, it does need to start being something that's addressed. And for the kids, like, for all of the young people's sake, as well as ours, to not want to murder everyone that keeps saying that to us for the 5 billionth time. But,
because, like, you know, it's one thing if we call ourselves jokingly a hag. But when, like, an 18-year-old's doing it, and I'm like, oh, you're gonna become me sooner than you think. Like, it goes quick.
I mean, if they're realistically thinking that 24, that your life doesn't, that's a problem.
That's a
it's a real problem.
That is 24 is very young.
Yeah, I think that's also the thing, too. I don't know if it's just because we are older and looking back on it, but I feel like it's starting to get younger and younger, the like cutoff of this being too old. And a lot of people aren't seeing the real big picture on like how it is directly from misogyny and it's just it's perpetuated a lot in like spaces that are like primarily female, and it's like these people are being impressionable, these kids are being impressionable and like literally giving into ageism and misogyny, and are females themselves who would be directly infected by this and are not seeing it, and everything that's going on is like allowing it to happen and build even further, and it's like really damaging and really scary.
Yeah, like what do they think is going to happen? Things that happen in media like reflect reality, because media in a way is like a mirror to the real world, right? So if they're still, you know, just showcasing only younger stories and only, you know, primarily like male dominated stories and things, that's what people are going to think is the reality and is how the world works, when in fact that's not how the world should work. We should always strive to like do better and be better, you know?
And speaking on the male dominated stories thing, I mean, I think that affects so much too. Like, I mean, even as someone who's very aware of it and stuff, I have a ladybug on my computer. Earlier it flew up and I was like, what was that? It's a ladybug.
It's like, listen, I have some words. Oh my
God. We're talking about men. Let's talk about men. Like, the ladybug wants to talk about it.
The ladybug's like, don't even get me started.
On men. But I really do think that the fact that most media showcases males as the main character, period, and honestly very little female characters at all, or if they do exist, it's often just, you know, as the love interest or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that does end up being incredibly harmful too.
Yeah. Well, if you look at like the Bechdel test, which is, it should be the easiest thing to pass in the world. If you're unfamiliar with it listening, basically it's if you're watching or reading something and there has to be two named female characters who talk to each other about something that's not a man. That's all you have to do to pass the Bechdel test. And, like, barely any movies do.
No.
Like...
Still, and the fact,
it's
like...
so easy! Like, you can just be like, oh, did you go to the store today? Yeah. You've passed the Bechdel test! Congratulations! Like,
and the thing was, it wasn't created as this, like... difficult thing to pass. It was actually within the context of a comic at the time and stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was created, oh man, I want to say 20 years ago now, definitely 15 if not more.
Oh yeah, definitely more. I think.
Yeah, I want to say more like 20 now. But the fact that we have been talking about it actually in academic circles and a lot for a long time, and nothing has changed.
Yeah. By the way, the Bechdel test was created in 1985 in a comic strip called Dykes to Watch Out For by Alison Bechdel. So
I was one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course it didn't immediately become like this really important thing to talk about when it was created, but definitely I've seen throughout the years, like being in college and stuff, like it gets brought up a lot in media studies to where women have been talking about this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And just, I recently ran across, I wish I could remember the name of it. There's a similar test, and it's a little bit different, but for, I think, non-white characters as well.
Yeah.
And it's actually, you know, I think that'd be a good thing for people to start realizing. I wish I could remember.
Yeah, because there's intersectional is important in, you know, and it's, you know, when you're talking, it's a bit different when you're talking about Korean dramas, because, you know, and Asian dramas, because they're made in less multicultural societies, so that's more understandable, even though, like, but then you look at, like, shows like Itaewon Class that actually did have quite a bit to say about, you know, like, intersectionality within the cast, so that, you know, so there's always little outliers, but like in like the Western context, the lack of diversity is just sad. Like, it's just sad a lot of the time, where you're like,
you really expected to have progressed more. Like it's one of those things you like, we have progression in like one area or one little thing, and like you're on this high because you're like, yes, we've progressed, and then you kind of look at everything else and you're like, oh no, we haven't progressed at all.
Like,
or even if you're like comparatively to like different cultures, you're like, oh, like, you know, that like they might be like what we were 5 years ago, and so like we have progressed more, and then we're like, no, we all should have been like way farther.
You're right, we really should have.
Like, and then you look at the fact that there was a Cheerios commercial that had an interracial couple, and Cheerios got complaints about it,
which was funny because I think that was in the States, but like in Canada, I was like, but we've had those for like 15 years. Like we
not that Canada's that much better.
No, but like Canadian media seems to really push multicultural. Like it's almost like every single commercial has a multiracial couple because they're trying to like check off every box for every commercial. And you're like, it doesn't have to work that way either. Like you could just have a black couple. Yeah, it's allowed.
Or let's get crazy here, an indigenous couple on a Cheerios commercial.
Both of our countries have this issue. That's like a major issue in both of our countries.
A real big issue. But anyway, back to women, I guess.
But women do need a lot more space in media than they're given. Like, period. Yeah. And
especially women of color. So it all intersects.
Yeah.
And, you know, and queer women and all this.
Any marginalized.
Yeah, any marginalized groups need you, because in order to make them like, in order to make someone feel like they're part of society, you need to be in the media that a society produces. Otherwise, it's just extremely obvious that as a society, you are viewed as outside of it. Mm-hmm. And which is why, positive queer representation is so important to the gay community, because that means that they are part of society, because, many people want them not to be, or, people of color and indigenous people, and, make them part of, we're all a cohesive whole, and the media should reflect the reality of the world in that way. Well, even if it's an idealized version of what they want the world to be.
Well, and just like women needing to, realistically, women should be the main character of a lot more shows than they're given. Based on population percentage, women should have a lot more stories than they're given. It's easy to get, I'm going to self-confess, it's easy to get lazy and just, follow your interests and, go after the fun stuff. And then sometimes you have to stop and realize, crud, the last however many dramas or movies or whatever I consumed, it's like, that was all dudes. It's like, I need to actually be intentional about picking, supporting women, picking their, supporting those things, and
picking stories made by women, about women, written by women,
And it's understandable. It is hard to find those things, especially if you don't know where to go, and especially with us, because we're, looking at content in a different language and different cultures than us. But that's why you find podcasts like ours, who are will give you suggestions for things, and you can start there, and it kind of just, it snowballs, and just always being present in that mind that you need to be doing better is single best things you can do ever, and it will just start to fall in line, and then it will be a ripple effect, and it will help everyone.
And also how we encourage people to, if you don't dig something, drop it. Also encourage them, if something's hyper misogynistic or something, and it's making you uncomfortable and it's gross, drop it
and don't support it.
Nope.
Move on.
In fact, if you're comfortable, be vocal about it. We should be having these conversations. We should be able to talk about, oh, this actor did these awful things, and I will not support his stuff, and I won't be watching that. It's too bad, because I wanted to see such and such actress, but I can't.
And,
we should be able to have those conversations very safely.
And the more people speak out about that, the more that particular actor will not get cast, because people will not want to consume, and we can see the actresses we like.
I mean, if you figure out that something's crappy about a lead in something, just pull that sucker. Just don't do it. It's not worth your time. If victims start speaking up about situations in the production company or in their media company or anything, leave them.
Yeah. Because, you know, let's be honest, usually women aren't believed, so what would be the reason for them to speak up in the first place if everyone's just going to shit on them if they were lying?
Yep.
Just putting that out there.
But once you start creating those spaces that like start to feel a little bit better and a little bit more safer for someone to come out, it keeps, again, it's a trickle effect. Like it only takes really one thing to kind of really get the thing going and moving. So
as fans that discuss and talk about online and on our podcast, it's important for us to talk about those things. And because we all make a lot of choices like that often when we're picking what we're watching or what we're listening to and stuff, but we don't often discuss, like, you know, I'm not supporting that thing because of this, or because it's not quote unquote fun to discuss the tough stuff of, you know, this is going down with that production company and it's not okay. Like women are obviously not safe there, or even the entire cast and crew isn't getting paid. Like that's a whole different thing, but like there are lots of issues.
What was that show that we all dropped that where it was only the women on the crew who weren't getting paid, but the men all got paid?
Devilish Joy. Nobody got paid, but then there was complaints, and then the men got paid, but the women still didn't get paid. But also, there was a lot of misogyny in the show. So, like,
that show was a hot mess.
It was sort of like when I found out that the women didn't get paid, I was like, that sounds right, based on what I saw.
That sounds about
right to me.
Wow, that's horrific. Like, and we should be able to say that without stands of whoever coming and knocking on our, like,
no. And I know a lot I know people who watched that show and really enjoyed the show. I couldn't watch it because I was uncomfortable with it. Afterwards, I certainly can't recommend it to people because A, I'm not comfortable with it, and B, they didn't pay their actresses. Like, don't let them make more money off of something that they're not paying for. No, stop.
So when we're talking about like writing women, there's something that always comes up that I think I've talked about before, but that a lot of people like misunderstand, which is the concept of a strong female character, where if you ask,
there were scare quotes happening with fingers.
There were air quotes around strong female character, because you'll sort of notice a trend, especially with male writers and male directors, that they seem to think that a strong female character is a masculine woman doing masculine things.
It's essentially a dude character.
Yeah, so think like Sarah Connor in the second Terminator. Not that I don't like the second Terminator, it's a great movie and Sarah Connor's awesome, but not every character needs to be Sarah Connor, you know what I mean? Like, in my own personal thing, think that should actually be changed to interesting female characters, because for a long time, most female characters served as sort of the male interest and the male gaze. And so you can have, you know, villainous women, you can have, you know, cowardly women, you can have any sort of gamut of human emotion of women that exist.
Multi-dimensional women.
Yes, and they can be, as long as they're interesting and they're and they're not just could be replaced.
Prop.
Yeah, if you're a lamp and the story could remain the same, that's not a good female character. But then sometimes it gets taken to another level, and that is the manic pixie dream girl trope. Which I don't like. Imagine a quirky ditz, but she's so different. She's not like other girls.
Not like other girls.
Yes, she is. Okay, she's like other girls.
Can we stop for a second and talk about the not like other girls trope in general?
It's gotta stop. Yeah, it's gotta stop. What's wrong with other girls?
And even women should not be like, I'm not like other women. It's like, what's wrong with other women? What are you saying?
Yes.
And it also kind of like stems in just in that, like, it's not actually that they're not like other women. It's just, it's not other women that they chose to look at or see. Like, they were always there. Like, that person, type of person was always there. yes, I'm not going to see that person if I like continue to close my eyes and like walk the other way.
Also,
like, yes,
also,
you're not.
I really hate the expression because it's usually used to denigrate women who are traditionally feminine. So it'll be like, you know, if she likes makeup or she likes dressing up and doing her hair, like, oh, I'm not like, you know, this flighty, frivolous woman. Where it's like, what the fuck's wrong with putting on makeup and doing your hair? Like, I like putting on makeup, not obviously. Right now,
pandemic.
obvious that I like, but I like getting dressed up sometimes. Like, this all leads back into misogyny again, where it's just like anything that is seen as traditionally female is made sort of more like childish and useless.
Yeah.
Lesser than. Anything seen as effeminate is lesser than.
Whereas, so, you know, I always find like a fun way to deal with this is be like, you know, we'll do something like people are like, oh, you gonna go cheer for your little K-pop boys? I'm like, oh, did you enjoy your sports cosplay? Did you enjoy dressing up in your cosplay and going and cheering for your ball team?
Yeah.
How is this different? Like, how is it different? I just find it so funny that it's like you tell men, I am tired of women only being like the love interest, and they're like, okay, and then they take it to an extreme that's like just as bad as like giving them no personality. They just give them like stupid personality, and you're just like,
well, you can tell when it's written by a dude. That's for sure.
There's so many interesting female characters that I think get overlooked and overshadowed by like their male counterparts or like, you know, other things that just every time you see like a show that is centered around women and female friendships and like female interests and like it's so refreshing. You feel so good. It's like, remember when we watched Because It's Your First Life for the first time? Do you remember? Oh, I just remember. I was like, "Oh my god, I love this show. I love it."
Yeah, especially because this is my first life, where that like is an example of a strong character who's not strong. You know?
Yeah.
She is in positions that have been affecting her entire life, and her defense mechanism was to run, always to run, and you saw the growth in her character, and it wasn't some grand thing, but it was something that like she actually just was like, whoa, hold up, I've got to do this on my own. Like, I've actually got to do this on my own to figure out things and do stuff and figure out what I want. And the other females in entirety of the show, like, is almost everyone, like the writer person was kind of crap, but like, you know, they were like pretty supportive, like her friend group, and then the other girl that I'm not going to talk about, but like, you know, it's so great to have that kind of thing, especially when you're like the person who's like, I'm considered part of the other girls, but I'm not considered part of the desirable other girls. Yeah. I'm like in that subsection. Yeah. And so it's so nice and refreshing to see people like that. Or like in my idea is Gundam, like Gundam. Gundam.
That would be awesome though, man.
Idea is Gundam Beauty would be an incredible.
Yes. It's like a mecha just coming in and like, I need to be beautiful. But like that's like a really great, it's like finally you have a character who is actually like introverted, and like though like introverted characters are just shit on nonstop. They're shit on in general, in the general public. People don't like introverts. There's been this movement for the quirky like sayings and stuff, but like generally people don't like introverts, like and being one, it's like but always really hard. And finally it was like lead character and showing how introverted she was.
Both lead characters introverts. Boom.
Yeah. And it's nice to see those kind of differences, because it's like we're all here. It's not like it's a difference because there's only like a few select people, you know. This is not, we're not talking about like superheroes that like have magic powers that there's only a few of in the world. There's millions of people who are like that.
And there's nothing wrong with like female superhero characters either. Like,
oh yeah, no,
WandaVision, that was great. The fact that like even now in the year 2021, we still have to talk about the fact that women should be given multi-dimensional characters as though women weren't multi-dimensional before now. It's like
we've all been this way. Like you literally have like real life examples.
I'll like see these movies where you can tell just like it was all men, and I'm just like, have you met a woman? Like,
it reminds me
with a woman before.
It makes it obvious that it's not that it was just written by guys. It was written by guys that would talk about women in the ways that like, yeah, I respect women because I respect my sister, because I respect my mom. It's like, no. You don't respect women just because they exist and they're human. Like it shouldn't be.
You should have that sort of like background to make you like respect women.
They shouldn't have an adjacent role to you, the male, in order to be of importance.
That's like every time I see like, you know, there's a crime against a woman and they're like, she's somebody's like sister, she's somebody's mom. I'm like, no, she's just somebody.
Period. Like that's
like,
it.
Women exist. I know that for like, you know, most of Western society, like women have existed like under the thumb of men, but they've always actually just been people. Like
the fact that we have to fight to just say that we're multidimensional people and we want to be portrayed as multidimensional people
is stunning.
Because it's not like we're saying we don't want to see women play moms and we don't want to see the women play the teachers and we don't want to. Yes, we do. We just want them to be more than like that's all you wrote for the character. She's a mom. Like, does she have hobbies? What did she go to school for? What was she like when she was like, fully flesh out your characters. Even if she's not going to be in tons of scenes, make her fully fleshed out so that it's believable, so that we get why she's tight with her daughter or, you know, dotes on her son or whatever. Like, I'm more than just I have a couple of kids. Like I have other things in my life. Like
I don't know if you've ever talked to your mothers, but most mothers I've met have lives and hobbies and interests outside of their children. This all has fed back into this sort of, you know, this idea that we were talking about before with these, you know, young women who think as soon as you hit 25, like your life is just, you know, find a husband, have some kids. That is not life. That is not living. Like if your only thing in your life is your children
that's not even healthy. That's not even healthy for the children. No.
And this is not to downplay the real problem that is females in like positions where they can't. They've been like essentially brainwashed because of misogyny or like other like issues to only believe that they have that, like that's their only purpose in life, and that's a real big problem to address too. It's not their fault that society has been completely just taking away all their freedoms and telling them what they only are allowed to do, how they're supposed to do it, how they're supposed to be able to like become a certain person in the world, and it's this very like limited amount of things.
I want women to know they can do more and be more. Like if you want to have kids, that's great. Like, go to town. If you want to also do other things, the world is your oyster, and we should be allowed to do whatever, you know, interests us, because interests are what keep you sane. And speaking of interests, we're now going to talk about some, like, you know, female performances that we thought were really great, and like female, you know, shows in, you know, with nice female storylines and everything. This is the recommendation section of the podcast. So who wants to start with a little recommendation here and there?
I'll start with a quick one because I know that it'll come up at some point anyway, so might as well just say it out loud. Search www.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Now, I will say that there is competition between leads, but it's not of a romantic nature. It is of a professional nature, so it's different. There's a lot of multi-dimensional relationships.
What I like personally like about the female relationships in that one is that not only is there the competition like business related, they are literally the same business too. So it's like it's supposed to be there. It's not even kind of we're forcing females to be against each other. It's literally web companies against each other. And it's an actual thing that would happen. And that is it was actually a really nice thing to see. To see like the competition be not rooted in the second female lead seeing the main female lead with the boy that they want, you know? Or just random.
It wasn't
like, even if it was just like a random like competition because this person had a job and this person was rich. Like it wasn't even that. It was literally just they worked in the same.
We work in opposing
industry.
Like,
literally. No matter, even if we were
companies
here, it would
are
be
at
companies
war.
would have be at war.
Even within the competition, there were reasons because they would have different perspectives on how things should be run, or even freedom of certain, like when I say they're multidimensional, like they got deep into like the philosophy of like how they wanted things to work within their business, or how they wanted things to work within their personal relationships or friendships, or how they wanted their entire life to function. They really went deep with all those things, and they showed how they were all different and how they would either kind of get along because of that, or how sometimes there would be a little conflict or a big conflict based on those things.
And the other thing I really loved is that, so you have like the two characters that end up working together and they don't like each other. But when one of them calls up the other one and says, I need help beating the shit out of my douchey ex's car, she shows up with a metal bat. She's like,
no questions asked.
Like, I'm coming. Like, I'd love to smash a car with you. Like,
listen,
I don't know you.
Are, like,
I don't really like
just
you,
for
but
each other. But
you know, hey,
against
like,
another person,
we may have interpersonal work issues. However,
let me grab my bat
before misters. You know what I mean? Love that. Love that.
There was also a lot said even about misogyny within the show. I mean, like statements were made with it, you know, a business world, like the stuff that they had to put up with things like that. It was just great all around. Like,
yeah, it's a really solid one. We actually have an episode on it too.
Yep, you should check that
just
out.
If you're like wanting to hear more about it or take on it, but
it was universally beloved on this podcast. As was, I believe, because this is my first life, which we already discussed, but it's got the same, like, you know, they have what I loved about it, like, in addition to what we already said, is that all three of the female characters were all multidimensional. Like, it's based around three best friends, but they all wanted completely different things in life. So, and they all went about completely different ways of achieving
and completely different personalities. Like, they were all different people.
Yeah, but they were all realistic. Like, you're like, yep, I know that woman, and I know that woman, and I know that woman. Like, I know those people. I know people who are like that, and that was nice to, like, I think everybody who watched it could see themselves in somebody there, you know, like that, maybe not exactly, but like there were things that it was like, yeah, like that's more my personality, or that's more my life goals.
Another one that I really liked was Age of Youth. I've only seen the first season. I haven't seen season 2.
I've seen both.
Yeah, there's something just really nice about sort of, this is the same sort of situation where these guys aren't best friends, they're housemates, and they all have very differing personalities, but you see how sort of, like, that sort of bonds them together, and it's just nice to see stories about women with women doing.
It has a lot of, like, you can see the growth in all of them, and the understanding of each of them, because they're completely different people. Like, these are people that in normal circumstances wouldn't be friends too, you know, like, it's like even past, like, just like they're just opposites attract. There really are completely different humans, and just their acceptance of each other. And I think both of those, because it's my first life and Age of Youth, are really good for like a younger crowd that's not like high school age, the college age. I think those are good representations in the very like young 20s group.
And I believe they're both on Netflix. So
yeah, that's where I watched them.
They're very easy to find.
Also like that, maybe possibly, I haven't watched it. It is on my watch list at some point. It's Be Melodramatic.
I've heard good things about that one.
I've heard a lot of good things, so I can't.
I've watched a little.
I heard good things about it throughout the series, like even towards the end. So I feel comfortable, suggesting this as a thing that I haven't seen. But essentially, it's about a group of friends, and there's drama writers in the group. I don't know if they're all drama writers, but like it's just them like coming together. It's not all female cast, but mostly,
right? But it's definitely centered on the female characters, and right off the bat, kind of similar to Because This Is My First Life, the struggles, the variety of struggles in their lives, but of course their lives are also intertwined. And it even right off the bat started talking about heavy stuff like suicidal ideation, like because someone was going through grief and that's how they were having trouble coping with that. Yes, there were funny parts, but very, very multi-dimensional characters immediately, which is, you can always tell. Like when you hit those shows, it's like, oh, there are a lot of female drama writers out there, but you can tell when the show is really about the multi-dimensional women characters. You're like,
and I find it's like really obvious where you can tell the difference between like a female writer who was given freedom with their story as versus a female writer who probably had many men over her shoulder saying, we need this, we need this, we need this, not that, because like a lot of like questionable shows are also written by women, but feel like they're edited by men, if you know what I mean. Like,
it does have, I think one of the big ones for me last year was Birth Care Center, because it does deal with a very specific subset of women, right? You're in a birth care center with a bunch of women who've given birth in the last 2 weeks. It's a specific people group that you're looking at. And yet they were all very different, and they were all very fully fleshed out characters, and they were all dealing with new motherhood in different ways. And some of the characters weren't new moms. Some of them, this was their second or third child. And some of them, this was their very first. And some of them were older moms having their first child. And some of them were younger, like just barely 20 having their first child. And like the different dreams that they had, and the different goals, and the different ways that they wanted to build a life around having a baby and having a career, or just staying at home, or how were they going to make these things work and these decisions work for their families. And the men in it were very secondary, like in a sense, very much like traditionally women would be the sort of the side character, and you would just see them in relation to the men, not entirely, but the men were more that sort of side, and it was very much centered around the women and their experiences. And if the men were in it, it was how did they relate to what the women were going through. And it was really a very enjoyable, fun show to watch, but also hard at times, also if you've gone through some of those things.
I will say, and I think this is one that Natalia really enjoyed, I didn't end up finishing it, Oh My Baby.
Oh, yes.
There are definitely aspects of comedy within this show. I'm not going to say it's all seriousness, because it's not. However, some of the topics that they discuss throughout, they handled them in a very serious way. And I mean, down to the nitty gritty of her not being able to have certain rights that she wanted to have as a woman, as a single woman wanting to have a kid, like, and how that's not a thing in Korea. And she was going through a lot of other stuff. Yes, there is romance and things like that, but at the center of all of it was really her struggle for trying to do what she wanted in her life, and it pretty much society not wanting to allow her to do that. But I mean, you watched the whole thing, but I really liked that aspect of the show. And she played it very, very well when it was those, I mean, it was fun otherwise too, but I really enjoyed those serious parts of that show.
There's a show that I constantly recommend to people because I am obsessed with it, which is the show Fool's Love, sometimes known as Hogu's Love, which has Yui as, she's a professional swimmer, and everyone thinks she's just such a bitch and she's so awful and she's mean to everyone. But when you see like flashbacks of it, she's very multidimensional. She's it's a wonderful show. And then you find out like, you know, as a character, she's made to seem unlikable. But it sort of plays into this concept because she's unlikable because she went through trauma and it was a trauma response. And so it shows like how when she was younger, she was, you know, vivacious and, you know, just sort of like, you know, really, you know. And so I really liked her, like the character arc of this woman and how she relates to people around her in situations. It's a really good show. I don't want to like give too much away, but like, you have the opportunity to watch it, you should, because it seems like when you start out, it seems like it's going to be like a slapstick like comedy, and then suddenly it's like you realize, oh, this isn't a comedy, like this is real, like it has like a real sense of reality to it, that like this is a real, like, you know, this woman, you've met this woman, you've seen women going through these struggles, and it's just really good. I need to recommend Fool's Love anytime I can because I love it so much. And if you're like, you know, really into Parasite, it stars the guy who starred in Parasite.
I'm gonna definitely suggest as like another contender for a genre, Sweet Home is got
I was just thinking that.
Like ton of like really great females. Now I will say that it's kind of like half and half because it is very male driven, even though they've got a good set of female characters. It is mostly the males doing stuff. But I like the variety in females, and their strengths are completely different from each other. And I think like as the show progresses, you start to see more and more, and it builds and builds. And so it's really great, kind of like a great progression of seeing female characters like actually grow and use who they are as human beings in the situation, because it's a horror drama if you don't know. And there's monsters coming and killing people, but like it has like Ishi Young, who's like the, you know, she plays, which she normally does, is like the badass female character that's like the firefighter or whatever. She can kick ass and she's like great, but she's like super trained. And then you have like characters like, one of my favorite characters is this girl who I don't know how many episodes it gets to take to them, but she's a nurse or an assisted nurse for this like guy in the
episode 5. They show up at the very beginning because I just got there today.
And she's like my absolute favorite character. She's just like she is strong in that she takes control of situations. Like it's just, okay, this is what we have to do, like in that strength. And then like some of the other like people that you see, because the show is centered around, it's a the first floor is all businesses like market and that sort of thing, and then the top floors are the apartment complexes. So you have like the people who are in the apartment complexes, and you have like storekeepers, and the storekeepers really have like a journey that they take on them, and the females do. And like, so it shows some really great females like finally finding their voice too, and it's in ways that you're not expecting. And I really dug that. And
I was watching episode 4 today because I just started finally getting back into it, because K-Bay is the K-Bay podcast is recapping it, so I'm like, I have to stay ahead of them so that I'm, you know, so it was the kick in the butt I needed. But yeah, like I was watching episode 4, and it was very female driven, episode 4 especially, and just thinking that what it reminded me of was WandaVision, like that this was like where WandaVision was a story about grief, but told as if it's a superhero story, right? And this is like, it's a horror story, but it's really a story about like grief and loss and
the human condition.
Yeah, like and it was weird to have that. I was like, this show is absolutely nothing like WandaVision. I'm not saying like it's not a you know, it's a horror story, but something about the like the core, the soul of it, the spirit of it has that same feeling of characters. Like it's still very character driven, which is really cool.
I also really, and there's like certain, male-driven stories that have really great female characters. And I'm going to take it out of Korea for a second because there's a Chinese show called Medical Examiner Dr. Qin, Qin. And it's about this, like, douchey forensic analyst guy, right? And all of his assistants hate him, but he gets this new assistant who is a, like, male presenting woman. Like, she's a woman, but she likes to have short hair and wear suits. And she's very, just very competent, and sort of is like a wonderful foil to his douchiness by being, like, empathetic and competent, while he's just competent and harsh. And the show is really good. It's just like, it's your, pretty standard, like, hunting down serial killer through forensic medicine sort of thing. But I just think that her character is so interesting because it's so rare to see, especially in Chinese and Asian sort of media, a more masculine presenting female, because they exist. And she's not like, and it's not even like, oh, she's a lesbian. No, she's not a lesbian. She's, straight and everything. Not that it matters if she's a lesbian, obviously, we don't care. But, like, there's this concept that comes up that, like, masculine presenting women must be lesbians. And that's not the case, obviously. So it's like, it's a really nice to see. And also the show is really engaging. So it's really fun. So you should watch it if you can. If you like that sort of show. So I do, even in shows that are male driven, they can be forgiven for being male centered if they have good female characters.
One that I want to mention, a couple come to mind because I just realized a lot of my favorites, that's why they're a favorite, is they actually have good female characters in them. But one that I do want to mention is Rookie Historian Go Hei Rung, because of how they discuss the role of the historians, and even though it is a fantasy historical, there's some fact in the role of female historians in Korean history, and so they talk about some of that, and all of the female roles are just great. Like, all of the female historian characters, you want to get more and more and more of them. So that's
always the sign of a really good drama, is if you just want more because you want to know more about the characters, like what they're doing or what they're, I read a book a few months back, and then I reread it recently because I would, like, months later wake up and think, I wonder what they're up to, and then I'd be like, no, they're characters in a book, they're not up to anything anymore. Like, real. The book is done. But, like, real. I find that sometimes with the drama, it's like it's over and you're like, I wonder what they did next, I wonder what they're doing. Like, because they're good characters, they're fully fleshed out, you believe they have a life. I find, for me, a lot of the strong women dramas or interesting women dramas that came to mind for me are sports ones. And I think it's maybe partially because they have something specific that they're building the character around, or maybe it's that men more male writers understand the concept of a sports drama, so they, like, know how to make a woman more three-dimensional if sports are involved. Sports. I don't know. Like,
women don't understand sports. Sports complicated for women brain.
My first drama, it's another Yui one, but, like, Birdie Buddy, there's no romance for the main character. It's about her drive for sport, and there's a character, Lee Da-hee, is in it, and she plays, like, the rival golfer, and and it was good, and it was kind of funny with that being my first K-drama, because it didn't prepare me for the way that so many K-dramas would, the two of them would have to, like, hate each other forever, and, like, because they would be fighting over a man, and they would, and you're like, oh, my first experience was not, typical.
You were hoodwinked.
So this week I watched an Indian movie called Mary Kom. It's a biopic. Well, not really, sort of, based on the life of a real woman who was a boxer in India. It's a really good story and a really interesting concept. And like, just I went and looked up more about her life because it was like, you know how usually with the sports story, it's sort of their rise to becoming great, and then it's going to, you know, the final scene is going to be when they win that Olympic gold medal or whatever. And it was like halfway through the movie and she had like 3 championships already, and I was like, where are we going from here? And then she gets pregnant, and it's like, you can't be a boxer and be pregnant. Like that doesn't work, right?
Says who?
So she puts her, you know, she hangs up her boxing gloves, and I guess I don't have a life anymore, and I guess I'm just about being a mom now. And her husband is like, but why? Like, why can't you keep boxing? I can adjust my schedule, and you can like train, and you can. And she's like, can I? And he's like, yes, you can. And he just looks after their kids while she goes out and, you know, runs for miles and gets her body back into shape. So like the second half is about how she's the only woman, she's the only, not just woman, she's the only Asian boxer, amateur boxer who's ever won 6 world championships, I think. And I think she had like 8 of the Asian game championships. Like she's the only person, male or female, to ever have that many championship medals. And half of them, or more than half of them, came after she had babies.
Steering it into a new direction, now that you've had our recommendations for good stories featuring women, we're going to talk about some music. Just a little, you know, go into like our favorite, you know, groups and soloists of the female persuasion. You know, maybe some favorite concepts, and maybe we'll make a fun little anthem playlist for you that celebrates women's contributions to our musical delights.
I think that's possible.
That sounds like something we might be doing.
I think it's something that we'll probably
doing. Be a playlist on my drama list as well of all of those movies, and probably some more. We'll throw in some extras that we didn't talk about. There'll be all kinds of good stuff. So,
okay. Do you
Jesse.
Okay.
Jesse.
Well, I will quickly talk about. I'll make it a 2-in-1 because technically this works out when you hear what I have to say. But my alt bias, my number 1 beats every person ever, is Solji. And she is part of the group EXID, and they both like are really good representations of like female like empowerment and music. And I love Solji. I love her voice. I think her voice is incredible. She's one of the best like vocalists in K-pop right now, I believe. And I don't think she gets a lot of credit for that. But like EXID in whole, they're part of the girl crush type concept, but they are about female empowerment and like controlling your own sexuality and controlling what like people are saying to you and kind of like figuring out things on your own. And I think just as a whole, EXID's music is really good, and just like the members themselves, they're very like outgoing and strong and present, and like you kind of actually see that in some of their like the works that they're doing, like especially right now Hani, who has been doing a lot of like acting. She's, you know, she was in XX, which was like a really great thing, and she's also now in a movie, or the movie's coming out soon, where she plays like a completely different character. Just on a whole, EXID, really great. And Solji with her power vocals, I love it. And they're like one of my favorites. And, you know, I have to talk about them.
For me,
do you have a specific song that you recommend?
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, what?
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
yeah.
no.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that music video is actually like specifically targeted to the censorship of females in Korea, and how they're like, you know, they're censored for like the dumbest stuff, and like like males aren't, but then the lyrics themselves are actually targeted against catcalling and how stupid males look by doing that. And what are you thinking? Do you think I was actually gonna come like hang out with you? Really?
Yeah.
That's what you thought?
Catcalling.
Yeah.
Like,
Nah.
Yeah. So all around, it's a good pick.
For me, I'm gonna go with Jessie. Not this Jessie. Jessie the rapper Jessie.
Drop the E and get
drop the E and you've got Jessie. There's something about her that she's just so unapologetically herself that really appeals to me, because you look back at her story, like she moved to Korea to be a singer. She was forced by her company to get plastic surgery. She gets sort of, that's all anyone ever talked about her. So she was like, yeah, bitch, I got plastic surgery. So what? So what if people talk about my boobs? They should. I paid enough money for them. So what if people think I'm scary? I'm gonna be the scariest bitch you've ever seen. And I just like that sort of attitude that she has, where she's just like, yeah, I'm me. You can say whatever shit you want to about me, and it doesn't faze me, because at the end of the day, I got my cash, I got the bag, I'm good, I'm living it, and whatever, and I really like how she sort of defies a lot of, Korean aesthetic norms, and also Korean, how they believe women should act norms. And I think it's very refreshing to see her succeed, despite all of this. You know what I mean? Because she's loud. She's not, she's polite, but she's not quiet. So, she says what she thinks. She won't, come after you and be mean, but she's gonna say what she thinks regardless. And, she's like, yeah, I'm sexy. What of it? I'm sexy on my own terms now, because when I was younger, I was forced to be sexy on other people's terms, and I don't want to live that way anymore. And you just gotta sort of appreciate, whether you like her or not, just sort of gotta appreciate her brazenness. And I'm a big fan. And if I were to pick one song, though I hate the title of it, it does really encapsulate everything that I'm talking about with her, and that is the song Spirit Animal. Yeah, it's a pretty good song.
I have to go with Yoon Marais, because I love Yoon Marais. I mean, obviously we did a whole episode because she was my birthday pick once, but same thing, she just is so herself, and she's so talented, and deals with a lot. I think being having a Black father and an Asian mother, and that there's a lot going on that way, to be between two worlds in some ways, but also just she's fabulous. Her music is great, and that she started very young and got married and had a kid and kept working and kept doing her thing and continued to have great music, and works with her husband, and just is just so well beloved in the industry, and works so hard, and still and is also a wife and a mother, and it's just, she's again that well-rounded person who's just trying to do a lot and seemingly succeeding at everything she's putting her finger to. So I like that. And for me, as far as a quintessential song of hers, for me would be Kai Baibo, which is fun and powerful and enjoyable, and yeah.
So for me, I think I'm gonna have to talk about Sunmi. And we have an episode on Sunmi, so I'm not gonna go away into Sunmi. But she's amazing. Her songs are always kind of have a female empowerment bent to them of various kinds. She's a great person. She seems really fun. And even she's open with her mental struggles and things like that, which is a very important thing, especially more difficult in her culture. So I think the song I'll pick is La 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 Lay, because the lyrics are really good. She definitely always has a certain attitude in her songs. Like, a lot of them are about either a failed relationship or something like that, but a lot of it has to do with living for herself, making her own choices, you know, how that's an important thing to do. So, and sometimes, like La 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 Lay, it's like she's kind of talking to the general public about like how they perceive her, and that's always a really cool. Those songs are also very fun because it's nice when female artists actually discuss those things.
Yeah.
Another option. Should we do another option?
Oh yeah.
Another option is a group called Billy Carter. They're a punk kind of rock band. They're kind of like an all-around band, but mostly punk. They're an indie group, all female, and they are very vocal on a lot of issues. And they do it not even in their lyrics, but also just in general on activism on social media. They were very big in participating in all of the Black Lives Matter movement in Korea, and were very vocal about that. That's kind of like when I first actually started to listen to them, because I found them through that. But they are very outspoken about all things, and not just things that are issues about feminism and just being a female and in Korea, but also very vocal about the pressures and issues of being a female in music in Korea and in their like genre, which is like rock, and how it is effective and that sort of thing. And they're just all around a really great, like very talented group of women, and I love everything that they have. Their album that they came out with last year was fantastic, and you'll like, once you start to listen to it, you'll see that there are a lot of the themes are very like, you know, pro-choice, pro being who you are, pro just loving who you want to love. A lot of their music is also in English too, and a couple of the members actually are fluent in English, so they've done a lot of interviews too in English. So if you want to read up on them, that's like really great. And I would say My Body, My Choice is a great pick for one of the songs. It's just
very direct to the point. Like
yes,
it.
they're just an amazing group and just talented all around too. They like legit make great music. So yeah,
nice. For me, though, I do love all of Mamamoo. I'm gonna have to go with Hwasa. Though Mamamoo, love them all. They're great. Just Hwasa really speaks to me, and a lot of her solo work really speaks to me as well. And she just seems like a good person who is another one of those who has decided to defy sort of gender physical expectations in Korean society. And, you know, especially like, you know, she has darker skin than is, you know, in vogue in Korea, and she wears, like, she loves having her long nails and everything and dressing however she wants. And that's actually a lot, especially in conservative societies, that someone is bold enough to do that and not be cowed down. I also, you know, she had a lot of, you know, opposition, like, you know, before she debuted and stuff, about, you know, being unattractive, which if you think Hwasa's unattractive, get your eyes checked, because something is wrong with you. But if I was to pick a song that really embodies the vibe, I would have to go with Twit, which was, I believe, her first solo song.
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
And I believe, like, very clearly speaks to how a lot of women feel about a lot of men. You know what I mean? So it's really nice to hear just that it's a universal situation dealing with cisgendered straight men is is it's a universal experience that all of us, women share together.
Somebody that I got into this past year is Raja Kumari. She is an Indian rapper, and nice. I love her. She performed at that Amazon 8-hour Amazon Twitch concert that I watched last year. She's really, really good. She's got a lot to say. And again, dealing with some, it's not what you expect, right? Her personality, a rapper, like it's just not what people expect from a good Indian girl kind of thing. And I just really appreciate her, especially this past year, she released a song called Peace, and it's a different direction for her music, but just the concept of like, yeah, I've had a lot of anger, I've had this stuff, and I'm going to turn that around now, and I've got inner peace now, and I'm going to just live peacefully. But that doesn't mean I don't still have feelings on the subject. It just means I'm not gonna like flip over this table right now. I'm just gonna, I got peace. Like, and I love that song, and I love her. So
I'm gonna bring up Queen IU and her song BB. Again, it's another song kind of talking to the general public about just the stuff that she has to put up with and how she really doesn't care. It's also a really fun song. But she's just so cool. Like, I'm always super happy for all of her success because she deserves it. I mean, it's just great. All of her music is just marvelous. So IU, I know that she's everywhere and everyone knows about her, but go listen to her.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
If you haven't, you should.
Yeah.
It also helps that she's an incredible singer, so huzzah.
Yeah.
It's true.
So we talked about Miss A last week, so we have to talk about Miss A, but I Don't Need a Man is a very great song to put on this playlist.
Yes.
I can't really talk about them much, so maybe I'll give just a couple more like suggestions on songs. But there's this group called Rum Kicks. I don't know them like well at all, but they just released a song. It's called Don't Touch My Head. They're a punk, like kind of punk ska group, all females, Korean. And the song is literally about no means no. And they literally like this morning or yesterday morning is when this like released, so I just like found them. But I think it's like a really great addition to this playlist. And then also Ailey, I don't actually know how to pronounce her name like well, and I'm sorry, but if you don't know her, she's a soloist. She's just really great, and she's had some issues over in Korea too, because she's a part of the Americans that came over. But she's got such a great voice, like legit probably one of the best singers, especially in her type of vocal quality. She just so well, and she's like had to deal with like issues about like people commenting on her weight and just commenting about all this stuff, and she's kind of like pushed through that too. She has a song, I Will Show You. Well, the music video is not good, the song is good. Like the music video is pretty much negates a lot of things that like we're talking about, because she allows the boy to come like be with her at the end or whatever. But like it's got a really great, it's like empowerment anthem, like I'm going to tell you that I'm going to be the best thing that you've lost. If
I was going to pick another one, which I am, because that's what we're doing, I'm gonna have to go with 4 Minute song Hate. Love that song.
That is on my list.
It is the ultimate fuck you song. So good. Just, and what I love about it is that from a musical sense, it takes you on a real journey before you get to the chorus. Like, you think you're listening to one song, you are listening to a completely different song than you thought you were at the beginning. Real great, like, power anthem. Like,
also, I would say, like, if you're like looking for like something to put on your workout list, acceleration of it, it's just perfect. Go for it.
Yeah, it's like you start with the stretching and then you're in it to win it. I think it actually is on my running list for when I used to be able to leave the house to go running.
Oh, I love 4 Minutes so much.
So good. So good.
Somebody we haven't mentioned, but again, feels like she needs to be on the list is Boa, the queen. Woman stands out for me to be on this list of, you know, female empowering songs that we're talking about and female strength songs. Just, I mean, and if you haven't watched the video or any of the choreo of her upside down walking along, that, like,
you're missing out.
Fantastic. So you should totally check that out. But also, I would like to give a shout out to Lee Soo-hyun from ACMU, because I mean, I love her song Alien, you know, as her solo work, which is talking about being different and being a little weird and being okay with that. And when you read interviews and read with stuff, she's gone through a lot of that too. Like there's been a lot of, she'll tell stories about, you know, higher ups at YG and people who would look at her and say, okay, well, you have to get some plastic surgery and you need to get and she was like, no, I don't think I do. I'm good. And when you know how young she was when she went to work for that company with her brother, and just that she had that confidence at such a young age to be able to say, no, that's not in my contract and I'm just not going to do it. So, and she's adorable. So like whoever was telling her she needs plastic surgery is crazy pants.
Listen, them beauty standards got y'all fucked up is all I gotta say.
That is
she's
definitely
adorable.
It's a form of brainwashing.
It is. Because, you know, the more that people think that everyone should look the same and adhere to one style, of how boring would the world be if there was no diversity, you know? But yeah, bullshit. You're fine how you look, okay? You're fine. It's fine. You look great no matter how you look. You look great to me. So
I would like to add Queen by Third Eye, but it's spelled 3YE.
Yes.
Oh, names.
Because it's a fun song, dagnabbit, and I think it would fit on the playlist.
I agree.
I'm not going to go super deep. It's a fun music video. The lyrics are slightly nonsensical and slightly fun.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
It's not like it has this deep meaning to it.
And that's
they're fun.
Hey,
I mean, their Yes Sir song is fun too, but it doesn't seem like it would fit on this list very well.
You like them? Is it my turn again?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I Am the Best. 21.
Yeah, it's a classic.
I mean, classic. If we're gonna make this list, they're gonna have to. I mean, like, we could also put like, you know, Bad Bitch by CL if we wanted to. You know,
yes,
to really kind of tie it in. But like, just 21 in general. Just if you haven't, like, we do have a full episode, although it's one of our first episodes, so who knows what we talked about on that one.
It's funny to go like be going through this and it's like practically every person we're meant, and like you could go listen to that episode we did on this girl and on this girl group, and
I don't even remember what we talked about.
We have a type.
Yeah, but yeah, they're just really great. They're empowering in their own way. They like had a different beauty standard than like any other girl group that was out at that time during second gen, and kind of really pushed for that girl crush, but like in their own like respect. And they were just fun, and God, I miss them so much. Like I keep on like picking these ones that like are girl groups that are no longer here, but man, just like I just remember when I started to like really get into them and like just really go hard, and just like watching 21 TV and just like learning all about the members, and just They were so great, and they are still continuously great. And like Dara has been like teasing us that they will do a comeback. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but like since they're all pretty much like off, well, yeah. I guess Dara's still at YG, but like it can happen, I guess. I think if any group was going to come back after that long, it would be 21 on their terms.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
I'm hopeful. Yeah, I mean, all of their stuff is great, but you know, I Am the Best is just like a really good power anthem to have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's a good one to have on an exercise playlist too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like when it's a good one to have, like right when like in like late mid exercise where you're like, I don't think I can keep going.
Yeah.
I don't think I can keep going, and then it comes on, you're like, fuck it, I can keep going.
It's also got that good beat. The mega chalaga.
Yeah.
Oh, then every time I do this fake run, Diablo gets very concerned from his perch inside my face.
He's like, are we going running? Oh god.
It's like, oh god, we don't do that.
I'm still here, Mom.
I feel like we need to include a Dreamcatcher song because
sure.
we need to include a Dreamcatcher song, which again, we have an episode on them. Just saying. I say Boca. I think Boca. Or Scream, or both.
Scream.
Hey,
Scream,
you know, there is not a limit to the number of songs we can put on a playlist.
That's true.
It's true.
Just also as a side note, Dreamcatcher has never used pronouns in any of their songs to this date. Minx does, but like Dreamcatcher.
Mm-hmm.
Just as an FYI.
Just putting that out there.
And they also like will like correct people during interviews, or like correct people if they're like assuming that they're what's their type, ideal male type. They'll be like, what about our female ideal type too? So
listen, they're looking out for the WLWs out there, okay? You gotta appreciate that. You got to appreciate that. If I'm gonna elect another song, I'm gonna go with a recent come out, which would be Hyuna's "I'm Not Cool." That's
cool.
Yeah, I'm not cool. Dun, dun. No, it's like, one, it's a good song, and two,
Hyuna.
It's a good song. And Hyuna, who like, if you want someone who's unabashedly herself, you gotta go with
Hyuna. You really want like unabashedly herself. Red, is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is it for her?
Yeah, but it's like, you know, if you look at like someone whose career like just, oh god. What a fucking dumbass Cube was. I think she had one of the best clapbacks about that I've ever seen in my life, which is the day that Cube terminated her contract over dating Dawn. She sent her mother a bouquet of roses, but all the roses were made out of money. And posted it on Instagram and was like, I'm gonna be fine, bitch. And she is. And she's just living her life over there at P Nation, just like.
Also, side note, if we want to add another like great like poor group that's like stuck at that company, CLC.
CLC.
Out of all of them, maybe like Hobgoblin or No.
Yeah.
I just want to throw a little shout out into our list, a little Japanese flavor here. Group that I've gotten into kind of recently is Adarashi Gakko, and they're just wild, and I like them. Their personalities are just kind of, I don't know how to describe them. They're indescribable, but they're a delight, and their songs are fun, and I don't know, just like when you watch them in a video or like when they're performing and the dancing and stuff, like they just seem weird, and I dig
are
it.
Are they the ones on 88 Rising?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
because I've seen them in passing.
Yeah, 88 Rising's been pushing some of their more
have.
recent stuff, and yeah, they're just goofy and fun and like unapologetically themselves, and I dig it.
So what song would you recommend?
My favorite is 999. I don't know why. I just like it. But when you look up the lyrics, it's kind of like, so what? I, make my living doing fun TikToks and having this is who I am and this is what I like. And here it is. And, okay, cool. Do you,
I've
ladies?
also got to elect the song Solo by Jenny.
I had that on my list too.
And if you look at the lyrics, it's just like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. You sucked, and I'm better off by myself. Man, so many of these power anthems are just like, men, who needs them?
We certainly don't.
Not us.
I'm gonna actually ask Jesse for a recommendation. Bandmade. Is there a Bandmade one that would...
pretty much all of them, because their concept is literally to take back the ideas of the maids, the what are they called, the food maids, that you go in and like
the maid cafe type situation.
Domination,
hostess kind of.
Domination would probably be a good one.
I've really enjoyed their recent stuff, but since I haven't gotten super deep into them, I knew that you would have a better guidance on that. But they are so fun to watch, live, music video, anything, but live, they are just really fun to watch.
Really, really good. Yeah.
And even within their group, okay, so in case you haven't seen Bandmade, they all actually wear maid outfits, but they're all different. And even the way they style themselves is all very different within their group. So it's not like they all, the lead singer, she usually has flowers, a hat that involves flowers, which is, so she that's very pretty, but then I think it's the basis. She has very long, she kind of looks kind of more the metal, long hair kind of in her face a little bit. And her outfits are always darker and kind of more on the goth side of things. And so I even like how within their group, they kind of represent a lot of different things, just aesthetically too.
Well, this was our episode about how much we love women and women-driven stories and music.
And we want to encourage you to watch, support women.
Yes.
Support women.
To get out there, support women-made content, especially women of color and queer women. Inclusivity is really important to us, and I think and should be to the world as a whole. Because as we said before, when you see yourself in media, you feel like you belong in the world. And that's really important to us.
So being intentional about what we do consume from time to time is very important.
Also, I think it needs to be addressed, especially when we're recording this now. There's a lot of things happening in the world. If you haven't known about it, I don't know how at this point, especially if you're viewing us online. But there's some really terrible things happening against the Asian community. And it's resulted in a lot of deaths and targeted harassment. And I just implore you to go find articles about it that are talking about the victims and not the perpetrators. And I will have linked a bunch of different resources to help out, because I feel it's very important, especially with us being on this podcast and we inherently discuss so much stuff from the Asian community that we need to be sharing these resources and helping in any way we can. So there'll be a link or a bunch of links with ways that you can help, GoFundMe's or just different organizations. We need to be discussing these things, especially because we are benefiting from Asian content, and it's not good of us to not be helping wherever we see fit. But so yes, look at the links and the resources and learn what's going on specifically about it, because it's really just terrible stuff.
If you do have the means, there are several organizations you can donate to that where the help is going to those communities and those affected by the situations that are happening. So anyway, thank you for listening to our podcast. We love all of our listeners. We love all of our supporters over on Coffee. And if you'd like to become one, you can go to ko-fi.com/certifiednoonas and join the Certified Found family. You can listen to us wherever podcasts can be found, but you can also go to certifiednoonas.com where all the links to everything that we talked about will be on the podcast episode blog post. So thank you for listening. We hope you have a safe week. Keep, socially distancing, but also looking out for your fellow human, and maybe take a moment to appreciate all the women in your life this week, and, all the time, really. But we hope you have a fun and fantastic week, and stay safe, and keep enjoying Asian content. Bye!
Bye!